we give up very shortly after this. I'm like, oh, you are live.
There we go.
Cool. So that's a thing. So
Hey,
we have no video. We
did it.
We have some cover artwork here. Hey, I'm gonna send Blake. I'm gonna send you a link, so you
Okay.
can. We post this in Slack
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah.
Cool. Where's Blake? Where is Blake? And then like we can start an episode in earnest.
Then we can actually-
We're almost so close to being there. Sweet. I think that's it.
Cool.
So people can.
So are you having Blake proxy post? So it's
Yeah,
not
that's-
like
that's
not
what
from
that's happening.
not from Casey
Well,
this time.
Yeah.
that's part of it, and the other thing is like last week, we fucked up, and I didn't actually publish the episode that was supposed to go out on Friday last week. We got in and started recording the next episode, and I was like, oh shit, Alan had finished cutting it and sent it over to me, and I hadn't published it yet. So I tried to publish it while we were recording the episode.
That went really well.
Yeah, which is like 70 minutes of me like in between talking, trying to get through, and I didn't get it published. And so I've just decided that while I'm running everything else over here on the control board, someone else has to post the links, or I'll just like, my brain locks up. So episode 6 is this one. We had our first guest last week.
What was it?
Blake, you were supposed to be our first guest, but
Yeah.
you're such a busy dude to nail down.
Uh-huh.
It was Chris Hobbs came in. Do you know
dude,
Chris?
Yeah. I love Hobbs.
That was it was pretty good. So that
Yeah.
episode just came out today, and it was pretty fun having a guest on the show. So
I haven't seen that dude in forever.
He's just right down the street.
Yeah.
And I'll say this: I hadn't seen nearly as much of him until Tyrell came here, and then I've started seeing him a lot more.
Yeah.
He's
Is he
Tyrell's
still at Malwarebytes? Is that where
Yep.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
in
yeah.
Malwarebytes. Yeah, I do some freelancing security work with Chris, and so
Okay.
and then we go like to hike and do redneck stuff together from time to time.
Yeah.
So
I love.
It's,
Yeah,
he's
I
good
love
people.
Chris. He's a good dude.
Yeah, so he came and we talked a little bit about like pen testing and
Awesome.
that kind of stuff and his polyglot life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that episode came out today, and I'm pretty stoked. The guests are fun. It brings an extra dynamic because
Yeah.
like, without the guests, the first couple of episodes that we did is just our in the office banter and bullshit that we already listen to all day every day.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess for the listeners, we have our guest is Blake Johnston today. Is it Johnston or Johnson?
Yeah, with a T.
I have this
The hard T.
I have this really bad habit because I went to school with a kid that didn't have the hard T and like really would lay into you if you put it in
really?
there, and so like I'm overcautious about it.
It happens so frequently that
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah. So Blake, maybe give us a brief overview of who is Blake the man and what you do.
Lover of tacos and beer.
Fantastic.
I don't know anything about development, so I don't know why I'm here.
Taco talk.
Welcome to Taco Talk.
Oh, yeah. So I work at RevUnit, which is an agency in Bentonville, and I write JavaScript all the time.
We're really terribly sorry to hear that.
Yeah, you may be, but I'm not. JavaScript is my favorite language.
Now that's when we reveal it's actually an intervention in all of the families when you come in the room.
I told Tyrell, I was like, hey, we're Blake's our guest today and we're going to interview him. And so then he sent me a list of JavaScript interview questions.
Nice.
I wanted to see if we could get you to actually whiteboard stuff for us. If we could ask it in such a way.
We were just curious as if like typically in a JavaScript interview, do you whiteboard FizzBuzz or you just yarn install it?
You just yarn install it
got it.
because it exists, right?
Yeah, right.
So we have this joke, a bunch of us at RevUnit, that there is a JavaScript library for everything, and that you throw two nouns together, and there's probably a JavaScript library for that. Like you just make stuff up like turkeycorn.js.
And that's
it's probably a thing. Yeah.
I can write a Python script that like does a Monte Carlo simulation on that.
That's what I was thinking.
I think if someone, because I do a fair amount of the interviewing for the JavaScript positions at RevUnit. If someone came in and was like, npm install solution to this problem, I would be impressed. No one has ever tried that, actually. No one has ever tried that.
Excuse me. That's pretty funny. I don't know. We like to razz on JavaScript, but we all have to use it, unfortunately.
That's because it's eating the world.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah.
It is eating the world.
Not a compliment.
Unless you really like JavaScript.
Yeah.
And then it's great.
Yes.
So it's just the three of us today. We short team. Alan's traveling. Hayden broke his back moving yesterday or something like that, and so
Not literally.
Yeah,
Okay.
not
All
actually.
right. He's just
in
in
the
pain.
laborious sense.
That's right. Yeah, and so. Man, speaking of JavaScript, though, like bad week for you to come on the show because you knew we were going to give you shit, right?
Yeah. I'm prepared for this. I can handle it.
So as the as the probably the closest person to this, maybe can you tell us a little bit about what happened? We called it Left Pad 2.0.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
I think it was worse actually.
Worse than Left Pad.
Yeah,
Wow.
Because Left Pad, a guy basically got pissed off and unpublished a package that something else depended on. That like tons of other things depended on.
It was In
this case, what happened was basically a hacker got control of a popular. I say popular, but it's like a very well used dependency, and basically injected some nasty code in there.
Steal all your bitcoins.
It was like with crypto stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like we were talking about this at work a little bit, and it's actually really genius. Like if you think about how the long play that this guy made.
Oh, for sure.
Like
for sure.
He contributed to the project.
Yep.
He earned their trust. Then the guy, which is maybe something we want to talk about as well. The guy eventually that was maintaining it just got tired of maintaining it. Like it was getting nothing out of it.
Yeah.
And so this other guy asked for it, and he was like, "Yeah, whatever. You've contributed." Which brings up a lot of like, did you not like? I don't know. It's
vet.
Yeah,
like,
right. Like,
vet
but what's the
people.
expectation there from some just some guy?
This happens to like align with something we ended up talking about a lot last week, which is that like this is how hacks really happen. It's you're working people,
Mm-hmm.
That's an extremely good con.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like you doing some pen testing, Tyrell, and like you're still like I'm still working this job. I'm gonna get it, and like you come in as like an administrative assistant to the CIO. And then just wait for him to name you in his succession plan. Like as he starts like planning retirement, you get yourself in and you're like, now I have the keys to everything.
I'm actually pen testing Lofty Labs right now. Waiting to get a promotion so that I can breach things.
Okay, so a while back I read, we'll put it in the show notes. I don't have it in front of me. I'll have to do some homework. But there was this really great Medium article that it was a JS developer had written. Basically, this is how I'm hacking you. This is how I'm stealing your credit card number.
Right. Yeah.
Like that. And he like talked about an active exploit that was running, and he kind of blinded. He didn't name any of the places where he got it, but it was a similar thing. He had built an open source module that had like a nefarious payload, and released it on NPM. And the thing that fascinated me about it wasn't necessarily like the code and releasing it on NPM, because I knew that like obviously I could write some terrible Python code and put it on PyPy or something like that. And the thing that I didn't think about was like the links that he went through to actually get people to use that module. And it wasn't direct. It was like, okay, yeah, you make some like some code that has a backdoor in it, but then you got to go get a bunch of people to install it. Well, what he did was he contributed. He like wrapped this really innocuous thing around it. He wrapped a really slick interface for changing the color of your console log.
Yeah, I remember
in the JavaScript console. Yeah. And so then what he did was he built that library, and then he went to like major front-end frameworks. I don't know which ones, but he went to like, I don't know, an Angular shaped object and like contributed a pull request that was like, oh, I fixed that feature request you've been asking for about more logging. Also, I integrated this other module that's really slick that lets us do the warning in a yellow text, and like just got it approved all over the place. And he didn't say what it was. He's like, but I got my module included in another module that then got included into a major framework. That was basically like was keylogging. It was keylogging and all kinds of stuff. And it was like, how will you find me? Well, one of the things you might try and do is look in the console. But he called it it was Schrodinger's exploit or something like that. By trying to observe his code, it changed the behavior of the code, because if you open the JavaScript console, his code disabled itself, so you wouldn't see the network requests pointing stuff out.
Oh,
so
wow.
Who knew how
Clever.
many things? Yeah. So like, this has been happening, I guess.
Oh, yeah. So I think that's, part of that, I think, is that's the internet. As long as there's a way to exploit people and exploit code, like, people will find it.
So you mentioned it was, I don't know if you said bigger, but maybe I'll just say you said bigger, and you can correct me. Bigger than LeftPad. What
bigger or worse? Yeah,
worse or what? What brings
so?
that?
So I think it was a little worse. So in the case of LeftPad, they
Was it because it was malicious rather than like just kind of like an open out?
Right. Yeah. Because LeftPad literally just padded a string.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of projects, when they tried to update it or build, and they did npm install or whatever, it just didn't work. So it was an inconvenience for LeftPad to sort of not be there. In this case, what I found was so interesting is the code that this guy put in there attacked one company's build process. The company, I won't name it, I guess, but so this one company, someone from this company had to install this module, and then it would basically inject itself during their build process. And so that's how it would end up like doing things and capturing people's Bitcoin information.
So the payload wasn't there except at this one company.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
It only affected this one company. So I was like, what did this one company? Either he found out, either he knew someone that worked at this company. He had inside information somehow of like, they do this to build their product. And so I don't know, it's super interesting, but it's worse because, it may be smaller in that it's the one company, but the malicious intent, I think, is what makes it worse. And, it does point out a problem with just, you can't just like blindly accept some of these modules that are out there, which...
Well, he gave him the repo. Like, he was just like, here, you can now publish this to NPM. Like, he's just like, take it. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done with open source.
This could happen to Ember.
It can happen to
like
anything.
In theory, right?
Yeah. You could literally, like...
Hopefully there's more than one. Well, there was only one guy. So that was
the project was small enough that it didn't have like a board.
One guy maintained it,
people.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so it wouldn't happen to Ember in that sense, I guess, because there's more than one person. But, there's so much stuff. I was reading up on this. And like LeftPad was only like 47 lines of code. So it's not like it requires a ton of maintenance. So for it to be one person that does it, that's reasonable. Like, you don't need like 5 people to manage 47 lines of code. But at the same right, like, that person has to take that responsibility super seriously as soon as it gets adopted to that degree.
And I think JavaScript is kind of unique in the sort of topography of its dependencies, just like when you look at any individual project. When you compare it to like open source Java projects or Python projects, like, I can go to a relatively mature code base, one of the ones that we work on here in Python and Django, and like, even one that's been around for a while and we've pieced a lot of things together, might have 100 external dependencies. That'd be a lot, right? That'd be a lot of them, but I can think of the project you're on, Tyrell, had 200, and I trimmed it down at one point like a year ago.
Wow.
And so
that's quite a few.
It was like 3 years of people installing modules. Nice. As required on the show, Tyrell follows protocol.
All beverages must be opened by the mic.
But so like that would be a lot, but like in JavaScript land, thousands and thousands. How could you ever audit them all, right? Yeah. No one reads their like package lock file.
And
someone in like you npm install a thing that reads your package lock file for you is what actually happens.
Yeah,
package lock file nanny.
Yeah.
Not JS.
Like, it's it's a graph, right? So there's every dependency has a dependency, and et cetera, et cetera. And
like you have that, like, you have a dependency graph in Python as well, and so it's not other languages have dependency graphs, but like with JavaScript, the size of dependencies are much, much smaller, and there's just much more of them. And any one dependency, like the depth, like when you go to install, Django's not a good example because they made it where they only have like 2 outside dependencies, but like a bunch of Python libraries where you might install something and it installs 2 or 3 other dependencies.
Yeah, pip install will grab a bunch of stuff for you.
Yeah, but
on your behalf.
it's not like JavaScript where you install a module and it's like each dependency it becomes like logarithmic at a certain point.
Yeah, right.
Orders of magnitude of stuff get installed, and it's people blame. I've heard people blame JavaScript's lack of a standard library. Like the language doesn't come with like the kind of robust toolbox of like sort of straightforward stuff. Left pad being a really good example of that. Like if the language had a left pad in it, there wouldn't be a million dependencies out there on a left pad type module. And so that's one of the reasons why. But I still don't I don't fully understand why JavaScript is so unique in that way of like the depth of dependencies.
Yeah, so JavaScript actually does have a pad start.
It does have one?
Yeah.
Well, what? Someone just didn't like the interface?
So here's a kind of a weird thing.
It didn't give you couldn't do it async? It didn't have like...
It probably... I'm
promises
trying
you could
to
resolve?
figure out. I can't remember when it got added is the thing.
You promised no promises.
Left pad dot then.
Yeah, it looks like it got added in like ES 2017.
Okay.
So it wasn't there in the beginning, right?
So yeah. I mean, that's like when you look at like, I guess like this all started around, it was like ECMAScript 5, I guess, right?
Yeah,
and so
right.
whatever wasn't an ECMAScript 5, there was this huge explosion in like NPM of stuff to fill those gaps. And like there's lots of cool stuff about ES 2016 and so on. And like that's where my knowledge is. I haven't gone deep on all of the versions that have like been drafted since then, but like I know there's a lot more, but ECMAScript 5 really didn't have much of a standard library.
No. And I think it's still the case that like that's what the majority of the internet runs on is ES5. So something like really interesting though is not only were there things missing that like really common use cases missing from the standard library, but you run into cases where a lot of times I'm not sure if it's if V8 is the problem or like sort of the underlying compiler, but you run into problems where like an implementation in a library is actually faster than the standard library.
Right.
So if you take Lodash, for example, which is a very popular JavaScript dependency, it does basically list manipulation, collection, etc. Their map function is faster than the standard library.
So that makes a lot of sense, like because that's something that would never happen in Python. You're not going to write shit in pure Python that's going to be faster than Python standard library because that's all written in C, right?
Yeah.
And Python's not nearly as fast as JavaScript. And so the idea that you can write some pure JavaScript that actually outperforms the standard library, that's a huge reason, right, why there might be a bunch of dependencies like that, and just people like knowing like reach beyond the standard library when you're optimizing this code because there's faster ways to do it.
And some of the APIs are nicer, right? Like than the standard library. Like in Lodash, you can chain stuff together.
Yeah,
like, and you can make it sort of functional.
And all like the polyfill stuff makes a lot of sense. Like
when
you can, because like you said, most of the internet still runs on that old version. So anything that gives you, I had the other day, I was, this was surprisingly more difficult than I thought it would be. I was building just a for funsies project, and I was trying to get like an upload progress bar. I was trying to upload a file over Ajax, and that was not nearly as straightforward as I expected it to be. I was like, I'll just go look up whatever the API is for that. And it was the first time I had ever actually built an Ajax call without using like
a library,
jQuery or Axios or something like that. And so I was like the first time I ever manipulated like XML HTTP request, like objects, and like seeing the Microsoft support, the ActiveX stuff, because like just spoiled entirely by all these libraries that give you the polyfills and like you don't have to mess with but you have to handle like Ajax is handled completely differently in a Windows browser at the API level.
And that's another reason that you get a lot of the libraries is that they do handle some of those edge cases, right? Like that you don't want to reinvent the wheel every time you write something. And honestly, all of the browser APIs, especially when we were in the world where people were still supporting IE a lot, which I feel sorry for those of you out there that still have to do that. That's horrible.
Those days are so far behind me. It's wonderful.
Yeah, someone was mentioning in like our MWA dev Slack the other day that they still had to do that, and I was like, oh man, that's
I saw
rough.
that. I felt bad. I don't remember
Yeah.
who it was, but there were like a lot of people chiming in that saying like, yeah, we're still supporting IE 8 or something like that.
Enterprise. If you're a heavily enterprise like old business thing, there's just like tons of like network admins, sysadmins who are just like got that all on lockdown, and you're not getting a new browser. You use that IE8, and you be happy because it keeps you off of Facebook.
Last
like
time
your browsing experience is so terrible, you won't enjoy the internet enough at work to do anything
to
but
mess
work.
around on it.
Exactly. I really think that's the strategy.
I don't know. I like the last time I had to support IE was when I was working in dev consulting for a company in the DC area. And that was in, I don't remember the year now, like 2012, 2013, somewhere around there. And we were supporting IE 7 and 8. I remember 8 kind of being a dream compared to 7 because it always moved.
Sure.
And the IE 7 stuff was just killing me. And then I talked to some other people. So we were working in private sector on media companies. But the other half of my consulting firm was focused entirely on government. And they were like, you guys can shut the fuck up about your hate because everyone at the Pentagon uses IE6 and it can't be changed. So this was years back. And so like the line has just moved. IE8's the new IE6. But back then, IE6 was bad.
Yeah.
Bad.
I actually had to support IE6 when I worked at Daisy and built their e-commerce platform, Daisy Outdoor Products, a BB gun company.
This is Tyrell built BB guns out of JavaScript.
It's true.
And PHP.
NPM install BBs. I had to support IE6 because basically the logic was old people buy BB guns. Old people have terrible computers.
Oh, okay.
If the old people with terrible computers can't buy these BB guns, then we're missing a huge swath of our market.
This this CMS has to support IE6 and Web TV.
So needless to say, it wasn't the most dynamic of websites, but it got the job done.
Yeah.
We had to support. I want to say we supported IE6 when I was at the Democrat Gazette.
I'm pretty sure my app is still roaring and ready to give BB guns to children all over the world for Christmas.
I was going to say,
from old people.
That also reminded me that the Democrat Gazette launched a redesign of the Little Rock paper website, but also the NWA one just got redone like this year. And up until that redesign launched, it was still the design that I put together that supported IE6 in like 2010 or whenever it was.
Confirmed.
Still up?
My business. That's my business right there.
Wait.
Daisy.com.
What's the URL?
Daisy.com. No one judged me. That was so many years ago. That's an old PHP site there.
Is that you?
That's
20 years ago.
That's literally me holding that BB gun. That's when I built it. So.
That's awesome.
But hey, I mean, I guess it makes me happy to know that my work is still successful enough. Like literally the whole e-commerce platform is built around this. It like integrates with ERP and like all this crazy shipping stuff. And
I think it's fun because someone somewhere at the Pentagon who's listening to our show, because we have a lot of listeners at the Department of Defense, can access this.
They can access it because it's going to work on IE6.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
That's what I'm talking about.
I also like that they are now advertising their guns with the safety glasses. That was not the case when I was a kid.
Oh no, it's required now. We were
when I was a kid, like on the package it said like "Have fun," pointed at your face. Shoot exactly. A GI Joe.
Yeah, exactly.
There's definitely been some reasons for that to not be the case anymore.
When you worked at Daisy, did you like just hang out in the back and shoot stuff with BB guns? That was part of the company.
Not always,
culture, right?
No, the best was. So there was some BB gun shooting, but it wasn't that common. But the best was when, because it was a very pro-gun. I mean, it's literally, they're air guns, but still, if you're selling air guns, you're all right with firearms. And part of the fun would be when someone in the office would get a new like high-powered firearm of some kind, and then just like 3/4 of the office, we all go to the rifle range and start shooting this new gun or something.
Amazing.
Gotcha.
It was like we would lose like a half a day of productivity. We were very strict. Things were well managed, well run, very conservative company. So like you managed your time, and so it wasn't like a super flexible schedule, and so you stayed on time, except when someone got a new gun, and then it was just like
It was okay.
all bets are off.
That's
We're
like
gonna go
totally.
shooting.
That's the opposite of what I was expecting, or not opposite, but it's much further down the vector because I was like picturing you guys like cutting loose on a Friday and like setting up soda cans in the back and like ba-ding, 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 but you're shooting like 300 caliber rifles.
Yeah, and we were shooting real guns. We had summer hours, and so we would get half days off on Friday during the summer. So there was definitely some. I mean, Daisy's I assume they still are a great company to work for. They were a good company to work for, and to progress as a developer, it was definitely time for me to leave when I left because they needed a web developer long enough to build them a big e-commerce platform and integrate all that stuff. And they're just like, sweet, you did awesome at that. Thanks, man. You know how to fix printers?
Oh man! And you were like,
I mean, I do. And there's like, cool. You like a paycheck, don't you? I was like, yeah. And there's just like,
I've been known to
there's
dabble.
a printer.
dang.
Here's a Windows CE handheld device that we scan stuff with. Make that work better.
Oh man!
All right, here we go.
What is it about printers that make them literally the worst piece of technology in the world?
I don't know.
They are terrible.
I had a moment. We had a copier salesperson came through earlier this week, and came in. I was like, "Hey, what do you guys do here?" And I kind of gave him a brief overview, and he was like, "What do you guys do for your copy needs?" And I was like, "We don't have those."
Yeah, we
He's
send.
like
emails.
copiers, and I was like, "Copier needs. We don't have needs for those."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, well, you know, if you change," and I was like, "No," because like we have a printer. And that's what he asked. He was like, "You don't ever print a document?" And I was like, "All right, dude. Yeah, we print a document." He's like, "So what do you use for that?" And I was like, "Just some shit we got off the shelf at Best Buy."
Yeah,
you know?
right.
Like,
that 150 thing that we
Yeah.
got, that was really cheap.
Of course, we're a small company, right? You get big and like,
Yeah.
if you, I don't know, HR seems like it's probably still a pretty paper-driven part of the enterprise. You need copy machines. I get it, but we didn't, and I'm glad that we don't have that problem. I'm glad to not support copiers and printers. Is that like?
Yeah.
How long have you been in software, Blake? Like writing code?
Right. Like 5-ish, right around 5 years.
So like you've been doing this for a good while. Like, what is it about? And if you've done it for enough small companies, I don't know if you worked in small companies
Before RevUnit, I worked at like an enterprise, and I wasn't writing software, but I was mostly doing BI stuff.
So maybe it wasn't as bad of a problem at like an enterprise. I worked at a lot of small companies, and it was just like, oh yeah, like person who writes code is lumped in with person who fixes printers, and like, that's always
the
person who
case, right?
changes light bulbs of like enough sophistication. Like if it seems complicated, like that's pretty much computers too,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And like, man, I'm just so glad to not have to do that. Support printers and
Yeah.
networking.
So when I first started working out of college, I worked at a very small software company. I think it was like 20-ish people, probably in that range. And then we got acquired by a very large company. Up until the point that we got acquired, it was.
And that's when the copy machines came in.
No. There were copy machines. This was in the fucking 90s. Well, not 90s, in the 2000s. So there were still
the
copy
double
machines.
aughts.
Yeah, there were still copy machines. But up until that point, like, yeah, it was the dude that knew that like went to college for like I forget what he went for, but he supported all those printers and stuff in addition to his job, right? And then when he kind of like got promoted up enough, it was some other hacks like role to do that, and then including like resetting the router and shit like that, right?
Yeah.
But then finally, you know, when we got bought by a larger company, like they had people that just did that.
And it was no longer like Thanksgiving at your grandmother's house.
Yeah, no. But that's like everybody, right? Like a lot of developers, they're like the tech person in the family. So
Totally.
So it's like my computer, like this website doesn't work.
I finally gotten to the point where legitimately I don't actually like I still write code and I don't write as much these days, but like even when I was like writing code full time in the more recent years of my career, I don't know as much about actual like general tech stuff. I write code, but like and so like my family caught on to me like not wanting to fix the cable modem like ever again. But at a certain point, like they would be like, "Come on, you know computers." I'm like, "Actually, I don't have a fucking clue about like modern modems and routers. I don't know. I don't follow that stuff." And like I had my dad came to me with a phone problem. And it was like having to do with his SIM card, and like I got a SIM card of this size, but I heard you can cut the SIM card in half, and I was like, I don't think that's right, you know. And I had to like step back and be like, well, I mean, I don't technically know that that's not true. I did some research, and I heard that people were like doing this. You can cut like a large SIM card to fit a micro, and I was like,
doing bath salts too.
Yeah,
do it.
Yeah, I know. And I was like, number one, don't do that. Number two, I really don't know shit about like phones. Don't ask me. Just because it's weird, it seems kind of counterintuitive, but like you can get deep enough on writing code and stuff that like you don't really have to know how computers work to do it. Like that's just a tool. That's like you know how to. You must be a carpenter. Like you know how to build floors because you walk on them all day.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
like not actually not at
no
all.
idea,
you know?
right? Yeah. That's a kind of a good analogy.
I'm really good at analogies.
I think that like anything outside of a computer, like any hardware outside of a computer, I fucking suck at. Like I'm not afraid to say that like my wife is way handier than I am. Like if there's a problem with the fucking microwave or our little Roomba thing, I'm like, I don't know what to fucking do. Like, I have no clue.
Just when you get it, before you leave today, take a walk around our office and know that we did it all ourselves. Yeah. And see how many engineers it takes to hang a whiteboard. And how many holes they have to put in the wall to do it. Like, there's some shoddy craftsmanship around this office, and it's like, damn, people pay us money to build shit for them. Yeah. That seems like a bad investment.
Pay no attention to the sheetrock saw.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's true. Like it's not the same thing.
No.
You know, there was a time maybe like where, I guess it was before I was in. I'm not into PC gaming, and so my computer skills, my actual hardware skills have atrophied or something like that.
And not just hardware, but I think what a lot of people take for granted is just like navigating like the interfaces of a Windows operating system. And that's like half the battle most of the time.
Totally.
It's like you know how to get around, right?
I dropped off of Windows at like Windows 7 was the last time I saw it.
Yeah.
So I couldn't help anyone with a modern Windows computer.
Yeah,
in that
right.
regard. Have you ever seen the flowchart, the XKCD for like how to troubleshoot? I think it's XKCD. It's like it's a flowchart of like how to like, dear grandparents, aunts, uncles, and relatives, like we don't actually know that much about computers. This is how we fix stuff when you ask us to, and this is flowchart that's like, what is the thing you're trying to do? Click on all of the menu options. Is there a thing that sounds like the thing you're trying to do? Click on that. And it's like this.
Did it work? Yes. No. Have you been trying this for half an hour? Like I found it. We'll post it in the in the show notes, but it's a good one for sure. I don't want to read the whole flow chart. That's the most boring podcast thing ever.
I think like so you know, I used to like my grandma. I used to do this with her all the time, and I think like a lot of that is just fear. Like they're afraid.
I'm gonna break it.
Yeah. Right? Like and then I think just growing up, most of us just quickly learned like you can't break it. Like
totally,
you can click anything, and then you can go back.
Because I started using this fucking thing when I was 3.
Yeah, right.
And if it could be broken, I would have broken it by now. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So we don't. I think you're right. Like there's a fear thing. There is also a sort of cognitive dissonance, like a rejection of technology. That shit's real.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pick on my dad again. I don't think he listens to the show though.
Not yet.
But I won't post it on Facebook.
I'm gonna email him.
There you go. Yeah.
We'll see if he knows how to use email.
But you know, like my dad is the type of person that doesn't use a lot of technology, and will be like, you know, I got this, new computer repair thing. I don't know how to work it. I don't mess with it. I'm like, hold on a second. Like, you used to turn wrenches for GM. Like, you can rebuild an internal combustion engine. This is just a fucking power button on it. Like, you can do this. You are choosing.
Yeah.
You are choosing not to do this.
Right.
Like, it's not that complicated. So there is a rejection of like, I'm not gonna try, or I don't want to, or like you said, like a fear of breaking it or something like that. But I don't know. It's an interesting thing. I've gotten to where I don't want to mess with tech stuff anymore.
Yeah.
I'm ready to have like a niece or nephew that can come over and fix my internet for me.
Yeah.
It's like
I'm still pretty into that shit. So
my niece is like a year and a half old, so like it's
right.
gonna be, and my son is only only 6 months older than her. So like, yeah, I can't remember how old my son is. No, he's like 18 months.
He'll be doing that shit.
Yeah, soon he can fix my computer for me.
So what's amazing is the quickness with which they children pick up on how to like use modern devices.
Totally.
It's mind blowing. So my 3-year-old is like an iPhone wizard.
Oh, I bet.
It's insane.
Henry will pick up like a wooden block and start pretending that it's a smartphone.
Yeah.
Like just like a flat wooden block. He'll pick it up and he like, at first it was just he would put it to his ear because he'd see us do it. But he like interacts with it. You can see him like tapping it and like gesturing on it and stuff. And like we might not even be in the room. He's like all his toys are in his room and like he'll run in there and we can hear him like digging through his blocks. And then I'll just hear him. He's in that phase of talking where like he says words, but only his mom and I actually know what he's saying.
Yeah.
And so like he'll be in there and I'll just hear him go like, hello, which is him saying hello to a block in his room. So he's just picking up every block and talking to it.
That's great.
Yeah. And like, it's crazy. I remember having that first realization. It was before I had kids. But a colleague that I worked with at the newspaper, his daughter was probably about Henry's age now. So coming up on 2. And she picked up like a toy phone and was messing with it. And he said, hey, what are you doing? And she said, I'm texting. And it blew his mind. And it blew my mind too. It's like, how does a kid know what texting is? They observe it. But like, it's like the observing you. It's the combination of like observing other people, the things that they do, and like not being scared of anything. Like I am afraid to try nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That makes kids really good at technology.
It's interesting. Like, and we don't need to hang out on kids and screen time too long.
Welcome to Kids and Screen Time.
Deep, real deep, real fast.
This is NPR B-roll.
But I am aware. I find myself very aware of my kids watching me on my phone because, like, I've had to realize all they know of this is fun,
right?
And like for me, it serves as a device that covers a variety of needs. But they just see me on my phone frequently, and they're just like, Dad's on the fun screen all the time.
Yep, Dad's just over there playing Minecraft.
Just gaming all the time. All Dad does is game. And so I find myself being like very aware, like, don't be on the phone. And I don't want to hide, but I also don't want to like encourage things. It's a complicated.
It's so complicated.
Modern woes.
I hate them personally.
Yeah.
I really do. I've gotten to that point where I'm ready to just like
get you a flip phone.
Yeah, exactly. I'm ready to get a flip phone and a like a pad of paper to write phone numbers on, and like do it because I don't know. It's just like it's too much. And like I had this whole. I had this realization one day. Someone was mad at me for not answering a phone call. Family member, friend. I don't remember. It was a couple of years ago, actually. But like, it was the turning point for me. It was like, I pay hundreds of dollars a month for this thing, and it's for me. It's not for you. It's like this is for my convenience to do the things. But what it is actually like I'm paying hundreds of dollars a month for someone else to like feel like they have the privilege to demand an audience with me whenever they want. They're like, what do you mean? Why didn't you answer your phone? You screen my call? I'm like, fuck yeah, I did. I pay $100 so I can screen your calls.
Yeah, right.
You know, like,
oh man,
I was like, this. there was a time where when you were like late for work or late to an event or something like that, you just didn't get there on time.
Yeah,
and people were like, I don't know where Tyrell is.
Yeah.
I don't know I guess he's somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that was the end of it, But like, I don't know. I kind of hate it. I kind of wish.
Yeah.
Like,
So a typical millennial me, like I can't stand it when people call me.
right.
So I will just not answer. And then I will literally text them right after that and be like, "What do you want?"
Yeah.
It's just
As I started shifting my career into sales, I just had to like swallow that.
Yeah,
But
right.
I'm the same way. I grew up in that world. I grew up in like a world where my friends didn't call each other. Well, I mean, we did a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But like,
we did until texting was invented.
like texting. I remember texting being around, but it being too expensive
Right.
when you're paying per message. But we had instant messaging. Like, were you on AIM?
Oh,
right?
fuck yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
AIM
yeah.
and
ICQ.
Yeah. Do you still know your ICQ number?
Nope.
I forgot mine. So that's too bad. That could have been a whole lot more funny if we both rattled out our ICQ numbers. Tyrell, do you remember your ICQ number? Did you have an ICQ number?
I had an ICQ number. I do not remember it.
Well, damn.
I remember the flower.
Somebody out
fondly.
there. I was gonna say someone out
right.
there remembers their ICQ number, but someone out there.
I think it was Jesse.
is
I'm pretty
running-
sure Jesse remembers
I
his
bet he
ICQ
does.
number.
That makes total sense. And like, and someone out there is running like a bootleg ICQ cluster,
is it, like,
so you can
still
still use it.
around?
Someone's doing it.
Okay.
Didn't it like get merged? It got merged with AIM.
Yeah.
And then AIM got merged with Gmail. You could like sign into AOL Instant Messenger with your Gmail account. And I fucked that all up. I merged my accounts and got double messages from everybody.
It still exists.
You still ICQ?
It still exists.
Oh my God. We're getting rid of Slack, everybody.
It's like it's new. Like
The new ICQ.
Yeah.
It's like the new
ICQ.
Zanga.
Yeah.
Zanga's 2.0 is out.
it's
what will they hipster next?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So we can move on to something else in just a minute, but I did just want to touch on like for like the device thing, the phone thing.
Right.
What I find really difficult about it is the access to information at your like anytime you want it is addicting. Like I'll just be thinking about something, or I'll be having a conversation with someone, and someone will say something, and my mind will just go off on a tangent. Like I wonder if, and I can find that out right now. Like I have the ability to know.
Yeah.
And that
access to the world's information at your fingertips.
And that's like 9 times out of 10. Like that's what I'm
that's
doing on my phone.
See, that's another thing that doesn't happen anymore. People used to like sit at a bar and be like, "No, it wasn't so and so in that movie. There was someone else."
Yeah.
And then like after 10 minutes of arguing, they were like, "Well, I guess we'll never know unless it comes on TNT."
Yeah.
You know?
No, I remember there's one of my favorite images is it's a comic where it's like 2 animals sitting on a couch, and one of them's like, "I just thought of something." It says like pre-Google. It's like, "I just thought of something. I'd like to know something more. I would like to know more about." And the other one just says, "That's a damn shame."
Totally. Right?
Yeah.
Gone are those days.
Yep.
Well, yeah.
Well, one thing we made it through twice. Now we've gone through Windows without actually hitting on the topic.
Yeah.
And Blake and I almost got into it before the podcast, but it's like, nope.
Yeah.
We have to wait.
I want to talk about this.
Yeah, we got to hit on this.
All right, go for it.
Microsoft has given up on the web. They're done. They're not making browsers anymore.
Which is fantastic.
They're just gonna use Chrome.
Because the web gave up on Microsoft like
A
2
long time
decades
ago.
ago.
but Blake was also happy with that.
No,
But
the problem is that they're gonna try and squash Chromium, right?
they're putting Chromium in. No, they're Chromium.
But that's
They're-
what I mean.
They're pro it.
But remember the embrace, extend, extinguish, right? Like that's the fear of Microsoft getting into open source. People said the same thing when they rolled out Bash in those like.
Yeah, but Chromium's Google backed.
That's true.
That's
different.
That's a
right?
big fight.
Yeah.
And I for one don't want to give Google everything. And I use Firefox, and I'm so sick of Firefox not being supported because it's not Chromium.
Firefox is coming back up. Like market shares crossed 10%, which is, I mean, it used to be a lot. Microsoft Firefox used to have like, I don't know, 60, 70% of browser share, like in that gap before Chrome, right?
Yep.
But it's coming back around. But you're right, that is kind of scary.
Like, it's not like I'm on Internet Explorer. When my bank tells me I can't use Firefox on my banking website, I'm just like, this is very wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yet that's what's going to continue.
Yep.
there's no need for multi-browser support anymore because everything's built on Chromium, which means
Yeah.
Google gets to dictate like what's HTML anymore. Well, I don't know. Ask Google. We'll find out.
Yeah, that's
CSS, like all of that.
it's a good point. I mean, like you can hate on Microsoft stuff and Internet Explorer or even Edge. I don't know. I'm so far removed. I haven't supported Edge before.
I've
I
never
assume
even
Edge is
opened
okay.
Edge.
No one. I don't. The internet's not full of people bitching about it, so I
Yeah.
assume it's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah, and so but at least it was a contrarian voice. Like
Right.
at least someone was being checked.
But like what the fuck were they thinking though? Like making a browser that works on one platform. Like who the fuck's gonna use that?
Well, Windows users, but
Yeah.
obviously that's it.
I mean
like-
that worked for him for a long time, right?
Yeah, but
the
like that's
times have
not.
changed,
Yeah, that's
right?
not, times they
Yeah,
are
they're
changing.
releasing.
Also,
Edge is now coming out with a Mac. Like you can use Microsoft Edge on Mac.
Oh, a file,
If not, like right now, very soon.
Yeah.
file that under shit that I will never do.
Yeah. And then they'll can it and cram Chromium in it, and it'll be like, what's the point? Why are you doing this?
I can't wait for them to port the Windows like settings application to the Mac. So the control panel.
Yeah.
You know?
When Windows 10 came out and Edge was first became a thing, it got a lot of good like feedback from the web development community. But and I think the honeymoon period's over on that. But I don't think it's that people want only one source of truth. But you gotta be like support all platforms because in most cases that's what people are trying to do. They want to, if you want to reach the most number of people, like you got to be able to support everything. And when you come out with a browser that's a single platform and that they all have sort of their idiosyncrasies, but Edge had some weird shit in it. Then like people just aren't going to use that. Like you got to be if Microsoft wants to like play in that space, they got to be smarter about it.
Yeah.
And like I'll be the first to admit that like in recent years Microsoft has been a lot better.
It's come a long way. I mean, I was kind of
Absolutely,
snarky about
yeah.
like, they one platform. Well, that's what got them, so far for a long time.
Yeah.
But modern Microsoft knows that that's not the future, right?
Yeah.
That's been changing for a while. There's Bash on Windows. Like when Azure started letting you launch like Linux VMs and stuff.
Yeah,
like
right.
Cloud. That was like, okay, obviously like the mentality's changing there.
Yeah.
And you could argue it's working for them. They just became. I've seen headlines. I can't say I've read an article, but I've read headlines that say their value is now exceeded Apple's.
So Apple tanked, right? Apple had a huge.
Yeah, they dove.
They toppled really hard. Apple had like an earnings call where they were like, it's not as good as we expected, and that took it a little bit. But then there was this battery manufacturer that like 60% of their business was Apple, and then they cut their earnings like dramatically, and then the analysts saw that, and Apple had this big sell-off. But then, I mean, not to discredit Microsoft's climbing against that, but yeah, Apple first crossed the first company to do $1 trillion in market cap, and did that, and then they slid to like, I don't know, it was like 850 billion. They lost like 15% or something like that.
Peasants.
So market, Microsoft is up above them, but not quite where they were. So they passed them that. The thing that I find interesting and also terrifying, because I'm scared of Microsoft still, is that Azure surpassed AWS in revenue, quarterly revenue. Yeah, but by a big chunk. It wasn't like a little bit. It was like I forget I think this was quarterly revenue. It could have been yearly. It's a big number, but it was something like AWS is 20 billion to Azure is 26 billion. I mean, it was like we're talking about like 20%.
Yeah.
That's because Walmart hates Amazon.
They made a big deal there. Yep.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I mean, Walmart's moving all toward. They have like the new partnership with Microsoft.
Yeah.
Moving all of their infrastructure to Azure. So, I'm sure that plays a part of that.
For sure.
Like,
I mean, and that's not the only deal that Microsoft's making, right?
Oh,
that's a big one, and it's a big one. But that's
at
not
least
the only one.
at least Azure doesn't suck.
That's
Right.
where the
Well said.
yeah, it's gotten tremendously better. I haven't used it in 2 years. When I used it 2 years ago, I was surprised at how much it had come along, and now like. It's you've got lots of like serverless stuff going on in Azure. You've got whatever the equivalent is to like Lambda. You've got functions as a service and AI models and computer vision, machine learning shit.
It's way better than Google Cloud.
dude.
Yeah.
Hands down.
Google Cloud
I spent
is
some time.
shit.
Google Cloud's got some sweet like AI as a service stuff. Like
Yes.
they're like visual computing stuff, like OCR and like.
Can't you just like hit
image
that with an
recognition?
API?
You
though?
can. Yeah,
Like-
you don't have to launch servers over there.
Yeah, right.
Right, and you can use those as external APIs. Those are awesome because that's
For sure.
That's what Google's
Google's good
best.
at, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My personal preference is to spin up a Kubernetes cluster
Yeah.
in AWS and then use that to hit Google's APIs for computer vision.
Yeah.
But like they're super good.
Yeah, I mean Azure's not that bad. So like I'm to Tyrell's point earlier, like I'm happy like there's a competitor. Like that's a good thing. Competition is good. It's gonna make both of them better.
Totally. Drive that forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise Amazon is just going to swallow the whole internet.
Yeah, like JavaScript.
Like JavaScript. Complete.
The circle is now complete.
It's like a
Except it's a good thing. Except JavaScript's a
podcast
good thing.
whine.
the circle is not yet complete. You still must put the last semicircle. Well, I think that's a show actually.
Yeah.
I think we got kind of riffing there for a little bit. We got started kind of late, so but man, Blake, it was fun having you on.
Yeah,
Good-
it just means we
good
need to
shit.
have you back,
Yeah.
especially so you can banter back and forth with Alan and
I
Hayden.
can't wait for
We gotta
that.
get, by the way, I have to say, Hayden did say hi, and he told me to tell you that React Native is okay, I guess.
Okay. Well,
To which Alan replied, "Views better."
yeah. I can't wait to dive into that conversation. So.
Well, come back anytime, man.
Yeah, dude.
So we'll have you soon.
Sure, that sounds good.
All right. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Adios.